You're commuting home with Katz and Cosby. Now, here's John Katzimatidis and Rita Cosby on 77 WABC.
With us today is Dave Donovan, and he's the New York State Broadcasters Association. And Dave, what the heck is going on? Which car companies want to get rid of AM radio?
John, hey, look at thanks. This is an issue that's been going on now for a couple of years now, but it was reported just today, actually, that you have a lot of car companies that are lobbying against this bill. Remember, we put a bill in to keep AM radio in electric vehicles, and you got a number of companies right now: GM, Honda, Ford, Tesla, and Rivian have essentially spending money to lobby to block that bill down in D.C. And so far, I mean, they spent a lot of money. GM alone in the fourth quarter last year spent $2.82 million lobbying, and a lot of that went towards...
And how much money did they lose on electric cars? Like $5 billion?
Right.
That's the issue. And the irony here is that you've got the federal government helping out EV vehicle purchases, and at the same time, you got the same automakers trying to tear the heart out of the government-funded, emergency alert service, which is exactly what would happen if you took AM out of the cars.
Yeah, that's the point, Dave. Like, why is it so important? We understand, but explain to people why it is so important. Dave, this is Rita Cosby. It's great to have you on again. But explain why it is so important especially in times of crisis or emergencies.
Well, look, for years, FEMA and the Federal Communications Commission have said AM radio is absolutely critical to send out emergency alerts. And WABC, for example, is designated as one of the key radio stations to provide emergency notices to all of New York. Now, if the automakers come in and say, okay, we're going to take AM radio out of the cars, then that decimates the emergency alert service throughout all of New York. I mean, we have a station up in Albany here. That's an AM station. That's also a key component for upstate, as well as HAM in Rochester. And so if the car companies, out of their own self-interest, take AM out of the cars so that they can sell you a digital service, which, by the way, may not work during emergencies.
$19.95 a month.
Exactly. And that's going to put a lot of New Yorkers, and indeed a lot of Americans across the country, at risk. Remember, New York, even in New York City, you have 73% of all listening to radio is in a car. 25% of all radio listeners in New York City listen to AM. When you go up to Buffalo, the number is even larger. It's 56% of all radio listeners in Buffalo listen to AM. So this thing would be devastating to our emergency alert service. And then once the alert service is there, remember, AM, as you guys know better than anybody else, are providing news and emergency information. And it makes no sense for the government to allow automobile manufacturers to undermine that service simply because they want to make money selling a new digital audio service on a subscription basis to consumers.
Yeah, charging them more. Here's Judge Weinberg.
Dave, good to talk to you again. I'll tell you what concerns me. The bill passes the House. It's sitting in the Senate. It's not going anywhere. The car companies are redoubling their efforts through lobbying. They're not being concerned at all about the fact, forget about New York State, for example, all across the country in rural communities, they need this service for emergencies. So it's not just about New York. It's not about urban areas. It's the rural areas will be cut off from all communications.
Absolutely. And if you go to upstate New York, you're about as rural as it gets in those markets up past Plattsburgh and Watertown. In those areas, AM is absolutely essential. Here's where we stand politically on this thing. Despite all the money that they have spent in the last 2 quarters, right now in the House, we have 239 members of the House have signed on to this bill, including the majority of the Republican leadership. We have to move the bill in the House.
In the Senate?
The Senate. Well, let me explain to you. Yeah. Right now, we don't have a bill moving in the House. even though you have 239 members.
How is that possible?
Well, what we have is this. You have 239 folks who've signed on, and then the current, Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, has said, let's go through normal order. And going through normal order means that you have to go through the relevant committees. And right now that goes through the Energy and Commerce Committee is the primary committee, then also Committee on Transportation, the Committee on Homeland Security. We have had issues with the chairwoman of the House Commerce Committee.
Who is that?
That's Kathy McMorris Rogers out of Washington. And we have been talking with her for quite some time now, and she may be leaning our way at this point, but her position has been that she does not support government mandates and views this.
Sounds like Rand Paul.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking.
Exactly. Well, that's exactly right. And she views this as mandating technology. But look, it isn't. Number one, you're not mandating.
It's the opposite. We're mandating not to get rid of technology.
Exactly. And the other thing, too, is keeping it in. If the automobile manufacturers want to develop their own digital services, we're not saying they can't do that. All we're saying is that you can't take this out of the car. And finally, even the most conservative economists, you go back and read Milton Friedman, national security is a proper role for government. And that's exactly what this is. So it makes no sense not to have it in. But we're working with her. We're working with the leadership. If you look at the Republican leadership in the House, Mike Johnson is a co-signer on the bill, as is Elise Stefanik, as is the majority of the Republican leadership in the House.
Good.
Well, Dave, keep us informed of what's going on, and because we're very, very interested, and let us know if there's any nuclear bombs we should set off.
Well, let's keep our fingers crossed. This bill has passed the Senate Commerce Committee. It's now, and we've had conversations with Majority Leader Schumer, and we are working on ways to try to get this bill moved. It's hard moving anything through Congress these days, but we're trying to get this moved hopefully sooner.
Thank you.
Rather than later.
Absolutely. Keep us posted.
Common sense prevail. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
This is Greg Kelly for Priority Gold. What does it mean to be America's precious metals dealer? It means that you're in touch with the hearts and minds of those who love this country, value our freedom, and want to protect the future. Priority Gold is that precious metals dealer. They've helped thousands of Americans back their retirement with solid gold and silver. Call Priority Gold at 888-506-6439. Receive free shipping, free storage, a free investment guide, and one of the best purchase experiences in the industry. Call now or go to PriorityGold.com.